Hello YouTube. Today we're going to discuss a new series that, if you see in the title, you already know is going to be in 7 parts, and that's going to be Deadly Sins. The 7 deadly sins are originally from the Bible, so it's a religious subtext. We're not going to talk about religion, this is not that type of channel, but personally I'm an avid reader, and a theme that's always been on my mind is the theme of the 7 sins, because you can find it in multiple pieces of literature throughout the ages. And therefore, now that I have a lifting channel, I found actually that all of those sins also relate to lifting. So what exactly are those sins and what is the point behind them? Well, there are faults that men should try to avoid to be as close to God as possible. So if we translate that into lifting, what would that mean? It would mean that these are things that you yourself should make sure you don't fall into so as to achieve the best possible physique for yourself. And you'll see that every single point actually relates to that. Some of them are more out there than the others. This is why today we're actually starting with one of the easiest, which is sloth, or laziness in more vulgar term. So laziness is basically inaction. It's the unwillingness to do something, not necessarily because you can't, but because rather you don't feel like doing it. And most of the time when we're being lazy, we are trying to avoid doing something that we know we should be doing. And I'm not going to lie, I fell through that times and times again, where I love training, but there are days where I just don't want to. And I'm sure that you're the same. Even though we love training and we have that fire going on, sometimes the fire is just not there. And it becomes very easy to think about just skipping for the day. That's laziness, that's sloth. And that's for people who are already in this lifting culture, but for other people who are not in there yet, it can become even more of a problem because it can prevent them from actually getting into fitness. Why? Because most people who don't work out, it's not necessarily that they don't want to work out. If they could take a pill that would replicate the effects of working out, they would. So what does that tell you? Well, it tells you that they want the body, but they just don't want to put in the work to get the body. So they are lazy. And usually that time they spend being lazy instead of working out is time spent watching TV, playing video games. All of these things are not a problem in themselves. You're not a drone who works 24/7. But there is such a thing as spending too much time doing non-productive activities. And that's where sloth comes into play. So as lifters, we try to avoid being lazy as much as possible. And the reason is simple, but it's sometimes hard to see when you're in your own life, because, well, I mean, you're in autopilot, you don't really think about the bigger picture for the most part. But if you skip only one day here and there, it might not seem like much at first, but let's say you skip a day every 2 weeks. By the end of the year, you actually skipped a lot. And if you start counting all the sets, reps, or the tonnage that you actually skipped, that's progress that you should have made that you didn't, because you didn't put in the work, and that's your own fault. Now, make the distinction between skipping the gym because you don't feel like it and skipping the gym because you have to. There are certain priorities in life that, in my opinion, should come before the gym. Your job, your studies, your family, your loved ones, all these things, for me, come before the gym. But the gym is right afterwards. So if I know that I have nothing and I should be training, I'm training. The issue also that is going to arise for people who are already lifters is that it can become something that is going to put you in a vicious circle, and it is going to store your progress so much that you might become convinced after a while that you cannot progress anymore. Because sloth is not just skipping a workout here and there, it's also not pushing yourself anymore. And that's something that I will talk about on this channel, because I know eventually I'm going to get people who are at my level or higher when it comes to time spent under the iron. And for those people, because I know some of them in real life, the number one reason why they stop progressing is because they stopped making their training hard. Either they didn't even have a progressive overload scheme put in place before, or they had one but they just stopped respecting it because they got lazy. And then they say, oh, I reached my natural limits. But the reality is that the only limit they reached is their ability to work. It's their ability to not be lazy. If they started working more, if they started pushing progress, they would see results again. But they're not willing to do that. Why? Because, and that's the point of the video when it comes to people who are usually not lazy, complacency is part of sloth. It's a subdivision of it. Even if you work out every day, even if you stick to your diet, you can still be lazy. Why? Because you're not pushing. You're comfortable where you are. And you might in your head think that you're actually doing everything that you can to progress, but in reality, if you were to look at the facts objectively, you would see that no, you are not. And by your own standards that you apply to other people who don't lift, you would be qualified as lazy. So for me, because I'm sometimes like that too, and for you, this is a cardinal sin. This is a deadly sin that we need to avoid. We need to put in the work. The more work you put in, as long as it's smart and it's within a progressive overload scheme, the more results you're gonna get. So that's it for the video. Of course, you can expect 6 other videos on the same topic. Thank you for watching again. Have a good day.